But at the same time, women's rights weren't even mentioned in the Constitution.
Hi friends, and welcome back again on another episode. How are you all doing today? I hope you guys are doing great. If you're joining for the very first time, hi, I see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I came across a video that sparked a very interesting conversation because people were literally sharing their real life experience and what they feel about a very short clip representation of the devil's advocate in politics class. This white guy made this video to say what it sounds like and how he feels when someone says, "Permit me to be the devil's advocate." This sparked a conversation. But before I dive into what the people are saying, because I would like you guys to watch the first speech, he made a lot of sense. But let me roll the clip of the video that started this conversation so you guys can get the full context of what the stitches are talking about.
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate, if we take poor people out of the equation, I'm not saying I agree with him, but as a leader, Hitler, just to play devil's advocate, I'm going to say this just so I can hear myself talk. But at the same time, women's rights weren't even mentioned in the Constitution. Oh, attendance here.
I just don't think menstrual products should be taxed.
And just to play devil's advocate, I don't necessarily believe this, but I do think it's true that all feminine products should be taxed 4 times as much as anything a man would have to buy. And it's so important to have these disagreements from both perspectives. Women shouldn't be allowed to vote.
What?
Grace, by the way, I like your Crocs.
Oh,
And
thanks.
just to play devil's advocate, those Crocs are disgusting.
Okay.
Yeah, just to play devil's advocate, if we take poor people out of the equation, I'm not saying
No, but it really be like that though. Growing up, I was used to the small town dumb racism. Like, you're a monkey, But then I got to Yale, and then I had to deal with smart racists. In that the fascism sounded so smart and so logical that it was poetry. Like sometimes it was literally beautiful. In seminars or discussion sections, they would start their comment off with the equivalent of, well, 1 + 1 = 2. And you're like, yeah, okay. And then they say, and therefore 2 + 2 = 4. And you're like, got it, okay. And then they go, and therefore that is why black people have insufficient culture and they deserve to be poor until they pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And you're like, wait, what? You have to rewind and be like, where did I lose you? You have to pause and be like, maybe I am 3/5 of a human. And you're trying to debunk the argument, but there's just they took one logical turn somewhere and you can't figure out where it is. And then the seminar's over and they walk away thinking they won. 'Cause you were flabbergasted. It was a culture shock, to be sure. I got to Yale, and then I had to deal with smart racists. In that the fascism...
You know what this reminds me of? One of the most popular books on the planet, the Bible. And this might upset some people because it's true, but it's interesting how the Bible uses sophisticated storytelling to justify demonizing another people's culture. Oh, speaking to your ancestors is evil and demonic. Divination is evil and demonic. Why? Because God said so. Now, wait a second here. Isn't it interesting that black, brown, and indigenous African people have had a history since time immemorial of speaking to their ancestors and practicing divination? How convenient. And even now, when people speak about African spirituality, they like to just shun it down, knock it down because it's demonic and evil. Sophisticated.
yeah, just to play devil's advocate, if we take poor people out of the equation, I'm not saying I agree.
This is very funny, and I'm going to tell you what I say whenever someone says to me, I just want to play devil's advocate. What I always say, like without fail, is I don't think the devil needs any more advocates. It's really that simple. I don't see personally the utility of trying to be an advocate for the devil, trying to take usually the cruelest and most insane position just for the sake of argument. I don't think it's very necessary. And so, don't think the devil needs very many advocates. And like 9 times out of 10, that gets people to stop doing it. But the people who are going to continue to play devil's advocate past that point are they're like the worst kind of person. You know the kind of person I'm talking about. Just sort of very annoying. But most people, they'll chill out after that.
Yeah, just to play devil's advocate, if we take poor people out of the equation.
Okay, I'm going to try to make this video as fast as I can, but I do need to set the stage just a little bit, so bear with me here. This is all about institutionalized racism in college, and it was all justified. So when I was a freshman in college, it was in a Southern university, large one, not going to say which one, and I had to take a sociology class for my honors college, and I didn't want to take the class, but I ended up having to take it, whatever. So the first day of class, I get into class, and I hadn't transitioned yet, but I looked pretty much the way that I do now, more or less, always dressed in black, scary, short hair, look like a boy, whatever. But I get into the class, and the instructor and all of the students that were in there, when I come in, everyone's just like, they're looking at me like Satan himself has just walked into the class. And basically that's how I was treated through the entire semester. And the reason why was because we were assigned journal articles to read, and every one of these journal articles were just racism all the way down. The first one that we were assigned, now this is again a journal article that was published in a journal, and we were assigned to read. Now, I was a science major, and so when we are assigned journal articles, we are supposed to engage with them critically, which means that we, go through their methodology, and we say, like, this, the N is bad, and we have, whatever. So we're supposed to engage in it critically. That's what I thought we were supposed to do with these journal articles. It's a sociology class. That's what I thought we'd be talking about. Sociology, right? Society. This guy argued that, and this is again the journal article saying this, this guy was arguing that it was a biological reality that the reason why black men are more likely to commit non-violent crimes, so like robbery, that kind of thing, was because they needed enough money because they are polygamists. Let that sink in for just a second. That this was a journal article published in a peer-reviewed journal saying that black men are robbing people because they're polygamists. And it was just like, where is this coming from? Like, where did they get this? I was so flabbergasted at this article that I started writing, like, in the corners, like, like all in the lines, like saying, this is wrong, where they get this, there's no citation for this, all that. I filled, like, the whole front cover just in one article, writing all these notes, and we had a big, thick article book that we had to read. And it was so like all of this. When I get into class though, it was even worse. So the teacher, she introduces it and she's like, okay, so what do people think about this article? And of course I raised my hand and I started listing off all these things that were wrong with it. And I'm like, here's where this is all racism and blah, blah, blah. And I watched the teacher's face go from polite interest to fury over the course of me talking. And finally she was like, stop. This is a journal article. This was published, by sociologists that have doctorates. This is like real science. And it was just like, what? And the whole rest of the semester, both the instructor and all of the other students were openly hostile to me. They would say horrible things. There was one lady who was like, my name is Christina, and it means follower of Christ, as it should be. And it was, like glaring right at me when she said it. And it was just like, okay. And I realized, like, looking back on it, every article that we read during that entire semester was all racism, all of it. We read articles about, like, Chinese foot binding, and there were more articles about black people. And it was just, like, all of it was just institutionalized racism. So, like, it's everywhere, and that's what people are being taught, and that's the journal articles that are being published. This is a while ago, so I don't know, those people are still there. I don't know if that's what sociology is like anymore, but it left a really bad taste in my mouth, and I hated every second of that class. It was bad.
I got to Yale, and then I had to deal with smart racists, in that the fascism sounded so smart and so logical that it was poetry.
Go back and watch his video. I tagged the creator below. So obviously in his video, he's talking about racism, but I want to take his point where he's talking about using like beautiful language and these logical arguments to reach ugly conclusions and justify terrible behavior. To do that, I'm going to talk about this book, Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, like a very popular book when it came out. In this book, the main character who is telling the story, so you're seeing everything through his eyes. He is a middle-aged French professor. He's living in America and he is obsessed with a 12-year-old girl. Yes, it's very disturbing. What's even more disturbing though is the language he uses to justify his obsession and love for this girl. So in describing his feelings for this 12-year-old, and by the way, he marries the mother to get close to this girl. He is the stepfather. He uses beautiful, lofty language to describe his feelings for her and their relationship. He uses his wit, his charm, his intelligence. He invokes literature. He uses like all sorts of similes and allusions to great classic literature. Sophisticated language to delude himself into thinking that he's in the right, and also to try to delude you as the reader. He's using words to distract from the terrible things that he is actually doing. And that was Nabokov's point, how beautiful language, sound arguments, etc. can delude you into thinking that the terrible thing you're doing is okay or justifiable by any means. When you actually read this book, you're both disgusted by the fact of what he's doing. It's disgusting. And you're also disgusted by the fact of the language he uses, because to you it actually does sound beautiful. It's crazy. I actually just saw a review on Goodreads where the lady is very angry about this book. And she's like, I'm not reading a book where I'm supposed to sympathize with a person who likes little children. And the point is, you're not supposed to sympathize with him, but it's like trying to see if through language he can pull you into his madness. And so when you start sympathizing with him, you realize you have been deluded and disarmed and distracted by the beauty of language. Be wary of intelligent, beautiful, lofty sounding language that is used to justify terrible actions. Also, watch yourself if you start using language and words to distract yourself from bad actions or habits that you're doing. All right, let me know what you think.
What are your thoughts about what the horse said? I love the first stitch, and as well what the last lady said, where she said check yourself to see if you have started using language and words to distract yourself from bad actions or habits that you are doing, which is very important. I feel like that is actually a very big message, because we need to constantly check ourselves as well. And I love how she describes, she literally just tells us everything about this book in few minutes, and I love that. What are your thoughts about what the horse said? What is your take on smart racism? People will use big language to, pass a point and still ends up with ugly conclusions to make you believe what they are saying is, good, is all right, they are saying the right thing. Let me hear your thoughts about that as well in the comment section. Thank you all so much for joining. Please subscribe if you haven't. And I am going to see you guys in the next one. Bye, and I love you guys.